probably most or all of you, this is the first time that we're connecting. It feels really good to be sort of home.
Mhm.
Anytime I meet people who know what it's like to live with and have experienced intrusive thoughts and know that moment, I mean, the best way for me to not just describe it, but sort of show it, which I know you all know, which is this. That moment is so lonely. It's so scary. It's so confusing. And Lily, I've learned so much from you, with your experience working with kids of all ages, like they say at Disneyland. We're all still kids, aren't we? And nobody ever told me or taught me when I was young that um, that we have 10 thoughts every second. And some of these thoughts can be scary. And um, and so I had to try to figure it out on my own. And sometimes the scary thoughts are something's going to happen to my mom and she's gonna die. And sometimes there's a scary thought of, oh my God, what if I kiss my boss right now in the middle of this meeting? What if I kiss him? And sometimes it's the thought of, what if I jump out of this window? It's the what if. And and again, Lily, I'm really grateful for spaces like this and relationships like ours, where in the context of this relationship, I finally feel safe to say out loud the what if. And that the mind, that's the brain's job, sort of, is to present all of these what ifs. Our brain is just trying to my brain is just trying to keep me alive, but it is so good at coming up with all these what ifs. Um, Hardly any of which will actually take place, but the brain is just trying to prepare me. And so I've struggled mightily, mightily. What really helps me is I used to think somebody needed to prescribe and diagnose and tell me what's actually what I need is to be with my people, connection, community, and a place where I don't have to keep it all inside. So when we get scared of the things that are happening inside us, it doesn't mean we're broken. It doesn't mean we're defective. It doesn't mean that we are a mistake. And if not for groups like this and people like us, I don't know where I'd be right now. So I'm really glad that we can all practice connection, practice compassion, practice sometimes, yeah, expressing our feelings and saying, I'm really scared right now. I'm really sad right now. I'm really angry right now. And thank goodness there's ways to get unstuck because these thoughts are sticky and we don't have to keep it to ourselves. So I see a lot of nodding. I'm glad I'm in the right place. I feel like I'm at a family reunion and I've just met a bunch of cousins I didn't even know I had. So again, I'm really glad to be here. And here's to a great session today and many more to come.
That's so wonderful. Thank you, Brian.
Yeah.
I'm curious, before we open it up, what are some things if you were teaching to sixth graders, let's say, or seventh grade when we met, and you were in seventh grade, what do you wish you knew? Like just some of basics. Like what do you wish you knew? And you might have already kind of brought it up, but about this topic, since this is what we're talking about, as I said, I know we could kind of go very broad, but in terms of intrusive thoughts, what are some things that you wish you knew?
Yeah, that's a great one. Just in fact, this morning I was trying to share this with my students, although a bunch of them are on their cell phones and sometimes they get frustrated. Put your cell phones away. But what I was trying to explain, and I find that metaphors are so helpful, so helpful. Just like the idea of a sticky thought. The first time that I tried to explain intrusive what I was going through to somebody, they didn't seem to get it. And then I sort of landed on, and turns out this is a very common metaphor that almost all of us use, is this thought is sticky. This thought is sticky. Yeah, sticky. And so the younger Brian, I think, really would have appreciated, first of all, being sort of honored and congratulated. Great job. Great job of using that metaphor to help explain to me or try to describe what's happening on your insides right now. And it turns out that, again, the sixth grade or the seventh grade Brian, who got stuck a lot. What if, what if, what if? It would have been really helpful if he was reminded that everyone gets stuck. Everyone, everyone. it turns out, some of you know Annie Lamott, who's a wonderful writer and a kind of a modern day philosopher, and she had a lifelong experience with intrusive thoughts. Anytime she would go to a building of any elevation, or she would go skiing with those, the chair lift thingies, or she would go on top of a mountain, she would always have the same thought. And it turns out it's a thought that everybody has when you're at a high elevation and you're looking over a banister. It's, I wonder, okay, some people nodding right now, so you know what the thought is. I wonder what would happen if I jump? And she was plagued by this, racked with fear and shame. And, she drank over it. She ate over it. By the way, eating, that's my territory. Okay. Some sharp cheddar cheese will help numb me out for a little bit. Thank goodness for that, which leads to some other problems. But she was on a vacation and she went to somewhere overseas, and she was on a tour, and she went to the top of a big mountain range, and sure enough, there was a ledge and a banister. And she looked over and she had that thought again. She experienced the thought. She didn't make the thought. She experienced this thought and she got scared, that feeling, that sensation. And just so happened that she turned over next to her and there was a rabbi standing next to her who was also on his vacation. And she thought, I've never actually said this out loud, but I'm here. Nobody knows me. I'm going to ask this guy about this. And she said, "Excuse me, sir, can I ask you a question?" Every time I'm at the top of a building, or I'm on a mountain or at a ski lift, or I always have this thought of jumping. And it's been plaguing me since I was a little girl. What is this? What's wrong with me? Why am I having this thought? And he looked at her and he looked at the banister and he looked back at her and he said, "Everyone thinks about jumping. Everyone. I do. Everyone standing at this lookout point of the tourist spot is thinking about it. The only difference is that no one except you is saying it out loud and sharing about it. And great job. I'm so glad you did. If more people were doing that, maybe the world would be a less scary place." And so sometimes I think about that, and I don't like talking about my sticky thoughts. Some people, again, I'll pass it over to you, Lily, in a second. This wasn't my experience because of my upbringing, but a very common intrusive thought, people sitting in church, looking at Jesus. He's a pretty good looking guy, pretty good looking in some of the depictions, some of the statues. And and I mean very common intrusive thought is, I wonder what it would be like to have sex with Jesus. I wonder. Now, for a 14-year-old or a 16-year-old or a 12-year-old or a 25-year-old to experience that thought, I'm going to hell. I can't ever tell anyone about this. There's something wrong with me. I can't come anymore. I think I need to maybe figure out a way to maybe a rubber band on my wrist to help me get through service in the future. The shame, the fear, the disgust. But it turns out that these are thoughts that we all have. And when we get stuck, we can find our safe harbor. And for some of us, it's not mom or dad. For some of us, it's not even a therapist, but it's people like us who get it. And this, thank goodness, this is the best way for us to get the first step to get unstuck. And then, and then after that, we're dancing. Again, another metaphor, but we're dancing again. And sometimes do we trip on each other when we're dancing? Sure. Sometimes Santana and I are talking. I don't know why, but Santana, I was looking at you and it just makes me happy looking over at you. So you're my friend for this session here. Santana and I get unstuck and all of a sudden we're dancing. I might step on Santana's foot. That's okay. We're dancing, but I'm not stuck anymore. And thank goodness that we can get unstuck, because I don't ever want to get back to that place where I'm stuck for days, weeks, months, years, y'all. When Lily used to know me, it was years, and I almost didn't make it. I almost didn't make it. So, here's to connection and community, really.